Hello everyone, and welcome once again to my channel. Today we'll be learning how to express fractions as decimals and also doing the reverse, which is learning how to also express decimals as fractions. Now for the first one, how do we express fractions as decimals? Well, to express fractions as decimals, you're going to need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number to bring the denominator to a multiple of 10. That is, you're going to think of a number that you're going to multiply the fraction, both the numerator and denominator, by that same number. And when you're done multiplying, your denominator must be a multiple of 10. What I mean by a multiple of 10, I mean 10, 100, 1,000, and so on and so forth. So let's go to our examples on the board. I'll have two examples, and the instruction, or what we're being asked to do is we're asked to write each of these fractions as decimals. And the first one there is 4 over 5, where the second one is 3 whole number 1 over 2. So let's go. Now we're asked to convert or express 4 over 5 as a fraction. As a decimal. It's already a fraction. We're asked to write it out as a decimal. Now the instruction we're given is that we're going to have to multiply both the numerator and the denominator of this fraction, and to ensure that when we're done multiplying, the denominator will be a multiple of 10. Now looking at the fraction, we can see that in order for us to convert this denominator, which is 5, to a multiple of 10, all we have to do is multiply it by 2. So that means we want to multiply both the numerator, which is 4 by 2, and also the denominator 5 times 2, and that will now give us 8 over 10. That's very good. So now we have a denominator that has a multiple of 10. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. That is, divide 8 by 10. Now, for some people here, they like to use maybe a calculator, but I have a video that explains how it is possible for you to multiply numbers by a multiple of 10. That is, multiply numbers like 10, 100, 1,000, as long as they're multiples of 10. The very easy way of multiplying these numbers by a multiple of 10 and getting your answer and getting your answers correctly without using a calculator. So please go and check that video out. Because of time on the length of this video, we may not have to go into that for now. But when you get to this point, you have to divide 8 by 10. If you know what you're doing, you know that 8 divided by 10 is going to give you 0.8, which is the answer. So now we have succeeded in converting 4 over 5 to a decimal. Okay, let's go to the second example, which is 3 whole number 1 over 2. 3 whole number 1 over 2. We want to express it as a decimal. So in this case, the first thing we're going to do here, since this is a mixed fraction, we're going to convert it into an improper fraction. We know how to convert by now a mixed fraction into an improper fraction. We take the denominator, multiply it by the whole number, add the numerator, and then put the answer over the denominator. So it's going to be 2 times 3 plus 1 all over 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. And 7 over 2. Okay, so now we fall back to our guide, which says that we're going to have to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same number and ensure that when we do that, the denominator will be a multiple of 10. Now, for us to get a multiple of 10 for this number, this denominator, we're going to have to multiply the denominator by 5. So it's going to be 7 times 5 all over 2 times 5. And when you do that, you're going to get what? 35 all over 10. Okay, now we've gotten 35 over 10. And now that means we're going to have to now divide 35 by 10. And like I said before, I have a video on how to divide numbers with multiples of 10 without even using your calculator and get the answers correctly. So if you watch that video, you'll be aware of the procedure, and then you know that when you divide 35 by 10, the answer you're going to get is 3.5. 3.5. So as you can see, it's not really a complicated process. Expressing fractions as decimals, all you have to do is what? First of all, you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number, and ensure that when you do that, the answer you get will give you a denominator with a multiple of 10, and then you now divide the numerator by the denominator, and you get your decimal number. Now let's go to the second aspect of today's video, which is expressing decimals as fractions. Expressing decimals as fractions. Now, I'm going to teach us a very, very simple method which I myself have been applying for a long time and which has been working very, very well for me. You can see the question on the board. It says express each of the following decimals as fractions in its lowest term. And that tells us that when we convert a decimal number into a fraction, we also have to look at the fraction to see if it can be reduced to its lowest term. Because like I said in one of my videos, we always express our fractions in lowest term. That is the best way to leave your fraction so that you can now analyze and understand it better. So quickly, let's go to the examples on the board on how to express decimals as fractions. We have decimal on the board right there, and that is 0.468. 0.468. Now, this is what you do. Once you're given a decimal and you're asked to express it as a fraction, the first thing you do is write out that decimal out. You rule a line over it, or underneath it rather. You rule a line underneath it, like so. Then the first thing you do is locate the decimal point. You locate the decimal point and you put a 1 directly under the decimal point. You put a 1 directly under the decimal point. You can see this one is directly under the decimal point. Now, the next thing you do is for every number that comes outside, after the decimal point, for every number that comes after the decimal point, you put a 0 underneath it. So now we have 4 coming after the decimal point. I put a 0 under 4. We have 6 coming after the decimal point. I put a 0 under 6. And I have 8 also coming after the decimal point. I put a 0 under 8. Is that clear? I hope it's very, very clear. So now that I've done that, what I do after this is I remove the 0 and the point, and I leave the 4, 6, 8 all over what I have underneath. So now I will now do this. I'll remove the 0 point and leave 4, 6, and 8, and put the over sign and then write the 1000, which is what was created when we were doing the conversion. So you can see now that the first thing you did, you put a dash underneath the decimal, then you put a 1 directly under the decimal point, And for every number that comes after the decimal point, you put a 0. Then you what? You remove the 0 and the point, and then you've gotten your fraction. Now remember, once you get your fraction, you also have to reduce it to its lowest term. You have to reduce the fraction to its what? Lowest term. So in this case, we have 468 all over 1,000. Reduce it to its lowest term. You have divide this by 2. We have 2, 3, 4 all over 500. Divide this by 2. You have 117 all over 250. So the answer will now be 117 all over 250. So the process once again, you put a over sign underneath the decimal number. You put 1 directly under the point, decimal point, and you put zeros under the numbers that come after the decimal point. And then you now remove the 0 point and you'll be left with your fraction. Then you also what? Reduce the fraction to its lowest term, like I did here for that. So 117 over 250 will be the fraction of 0.468. Now let's go to the next example. The next example is 15.36, and we're asked to express it as its fraction. So we're going to still follow the same procedure. I want to say 15.36. We put the over sign underneath. Underneath the decimal point, we put a 1. And then underneath every number that comes after the decimal point, I put a 0. So underneath 3, I put 0. Underneath 6, I put another 0. Now, one thing we need to understand is that when we're talking about decimal numbers have 2 parts. So decimal fraction, they have 2 parts. They have the whole number and they have the fractional part. So now, this dot and the numbers that come after it is talking about the fractional part, while 15 is talking about the whole number. So when we're through with this procedure, 15 will now be a whole number, like the whole number in mixed fractions. That's what 15 will be. Then 0.36 will now be the fraction. So by following the process I just outlined, put the 1 under the decimal point, put 36, and then put the 0 under the 3 and 6, rather not 36, it's 3 and 6. Then we're going to have something like this: 36 all over 100. We're going to have a mixed fraction because 15 is a whole number, while 36 is the decimal. So this 0.36 will convert to a fraction and now give us this. So we also going to have to reduce this. This is a proper fraction. We're going to have to reduce 36 to its lowest term. So we'll now write something like 15, 36, let's put it in bracket, all over 100. Let's say divided by 4. This will also what? Divided by 4, which will now give us 15. 36 divided by 4 will give you 9. And 100 divided by 4 will give you what? 25. So we've reduced it to its lowest term. And we've also converted the decimal number into a fraction. So once again, just to recap, how to express decimals as fractions. What you do is you put an over sign underneath the decimal point. You put a 1 directly under the decimal point. And then for all the numbers that come after the decimal point, you put a 0 under them. And then, like for this, in this case, there's no whole number here. So you can just remove the 0 and the point, and you're left with 468 all over 1,000, which is a fraction, and then you now reduce the fraction to its lowest term by 2 to get this. Now for this one, we have two parts. We have the whole number and we also have the decimal part. So what do? For the decimal part, where the decimal point is, you put a 1. And for other numbers that follow it, you put 0, like 3 and 6, you put 0 and 0. So now this 15 represents a whole number, while this 0.36 all over 100 represents the fraction. And so you write the 15 and the fraction. Then what? You now reduce this fraction to its lowest term to get 9 over 25. And then for the whole fraction, the answer will be 15 9 over 25. So I hope you understand and also enjoyed the video. If you have any question, please drop it in the comment section. And this video is very helpful. Please drop a like, thumbs up, and also hit the notification bell so that you get notified when next I drop a video. Thank you, and see you in the next time.